All right. Hey, Vikings fans. Welcome into another episode of the Skol Hop. I'm Evan.
And I'm Austin.
We're just a couple of dudes from Iowa. We like drinking beer, talking about the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, we do. And tonight is episode 62 of the Skol Hop. We started off by talking about the best division in football.
And, of course, the best team in football, the Minnesota Vikings.
Absolutely. We also kind of move on to a really cool Vikings territory article that looks at the biggest winners and losers on the Vikings roster so far this season.
And we finish off by talking about this huge matchup between the 4-1 Detroit Lions and the 5-0 Minnesota Vikings. You're going to be at that game. It's going to be sick. Can't wait to talk about it.
Yeah, I can't wait. It'll be super exciting no matter what. Thanks for joining episode 62 of the Skol Hop. Grab a cold one and let's go. Skol.
All right, we'll give a quick shout out to our sponsor for today's episode, which is Big Top Ventures. If you're looking for the lowest possible rate on an all-inclusive resort in Mexico or Jamaica, send them an email. We'll put that right down here, bigtopventuresllc@gmail.com. Send them an email, let them know what you're interested in, and they'll hook you up. So step right up to your next big adventure with Big Top Ventures.
Yeah, thanks, Big Top Ventures. All right, so this is where we would normally spin the wheel of purple punishments, but we don't have to this week. It was bye week, so we didn't make any predictions. Vikings couldn't make us punish ourselves. And
no prediction, no wheel.
Yeah, so we'll just have to wait until next week. I feel like I should have looked this up. Let's look this up really quick. Do we have a potential wheel spin next week?
Yes, so we both picked the Vikings to win.
Ooh, okay.
Next week against the Lions.
All right, so potential for both of us to spin the wheel next week. Probably not. I don't know. Hopefully not. We'll get to that. But either way, no purple punishments this week. So another week off because we didn't have it last week either, did we?
Yeah, we both correctly picked that they would beat the Jets in London, which they did. So there you go.
All right,
sweet. 2 weeks off. Hopefully 3 weeks off. That'd be nice.
Yeah, that would be nice. But then I think quickly after that we start alternating. We don't pick the same thing again for a while. So there'll be some purple punishment excitement here in the middle of the season. But either way, the Vikings are plenty of excitement enough, even on weeks they don't play. But before we get to any of that, we got some beer.
Yeah, we do.
This is still this is the second part of the shipment that Titonka Brewing Company sent us of their beer. They sent us 4 different kinds last time. What did we try? The Rooster Red Tail Ale or something along those lines. Yep. And an IPA that you really liked. The Middle of Nowhere IPA that I loved. And it sounds like I don't think there's going to be an easy way for me to get more of that without physically going there. So maybe I'll just have to physically go there. It's like a 4-hour drive, but
it's literally in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, maybe that's a part of the name. Let us know, Titonka. But tonight, I'm really excited. We've got 2 more Titonka beers to try. We have the Buffalo Creek Brown, which I think Jeff and Titonka said this is another one of their pretty popular ones. And then Evan, it's that time of year again.
It sure is. I'm wearing a sweatshirt for the first time. Yeah. It's like 40 degrees outside right now. It's finally fall, and that means that it's Oktoberfest time.
Yeah.
And Oktoberfest for me starts in July.
Sure.
And it doesn't end until June. Yeah. But,
for beer,
But no, we get to try their Tiktoberfest Martzen Lager. Mm-hmm. So I'm really excited about that one.
Yeah. So I think are we both going to start off with the Buffalo Creek Brown?
Yeah, that works for me.
And then we'll probably mid-episode switch over to the Tiktoberfest. Already it looks good.
Yeah, and I like a good brown as well. Again, you know me. I like a beer that's not trying to do too much. It just tastes like beer.
Yeah.
Maybe has a little bit of that malty characteristic, which I think this brown will. But yeah, I'm excited. It's very brown.
Very dark, yeah.
V. Very amber.
If you've ever seen Will Ferrell's Davenport sign video from probably more than 10 years ago at this point.
I didn't Skol.
You didn't Skol. You totally cheated. You got so excited for this brown ale. All right, let's fake it, I guess, now. Skol.
You're going to like it. It's good. There's like some chocolatey notes in there. Like cocoa vibes. It's a great fall beer. That is super good.
Yep, I can definitely tell why Jeff said that this is one of their more popular ones. Man, this is good. My goodness. And Evan, can I compliment you really quick? Your pour was fantastic.
Hey,
look
thanks.
at that.
Yeah.
You still got some head retention there, and you've poured it now more than a minute ago.
I'm getting there.
Congrats. We need to Skol that again. Skol. Man, this is a really good beer. Thank you, Titonka. If you haven't tried this one out, even if you only kind of like beer, this is one that I feel like most people would like. It's really flavorful, pretty dark in a good way. It's not like super thick. The flavor's perfect for a brown ale. That's as much as I can say without going over the top, I guess.
It's malty, but it's got some chocolatey notes to it. It's rich, it's complex, but it's also just like straightforward. And again, I like a good, simple, straightforward beer. This is good stuff. I would have a few of these for sure.
And what is it? 5.4%. You could have a few of these and not be ruining your day tomorrow. So yeah, really good beer. Wish I had a few more. Yeah, I think we just need to go take a trip to Titonka and stock up because they haven't missed so far. They're 3 for 3 for me so far. So, yep. Thank you, guys.
You know who else hasn't missed yet?
Well, there's a couple answers to that question. First off, you're going for the Vikings.
The Vikings haven't missed.
Yep.
There's a specific Viking that also hasn't missed yet.
Knock on wood.
Will the Thrill?
Will the Thrill is here. He's not coming anymore. He's here. But yeah, the Vikings are undefeated. And I feel like I said it a few weeks ago. I feel like Ricky Bobby. I don't know what to do with my hands or with myself because, good grief, like nobody expected this. They figured... most people figured the Vikings would win 5, 6, 7 games total, and they're 5 games in, and they haven't lost yet, and that's awesome. But we got all the naysayers and all the people out there that are apparently experts and know what they're talking about, and they're saying, I don't know, I still don't believe in this team. But on the other side of that, you're still getting some power rankings where the Vikings are number 1, and I mean, well-deserved on some point, but I still don't know what to think of it. Like, I hope they keep going, but you got to know at some point they're going to lose a game, right?
Yeah, definitely. And this last weekend of NFC North football didn't help the Vikings, really. It could have significantly helped the Vikings because all 3 of the other North teams played while the Vikings were on their bye in week 6. And, I was kind of hoping, wow, maybe the Bears will lose or maybe the Packers will lose. Didn't really have high hopes that the Cowboys could beat the Lions.
Yeah.
But, there's always that shred of hope too. And no, none of that happened.
Yeah.
All 3 teams won. All 4 teams in the NFC North now have a winning record. They're all above 500. And, that's kind of been the big talker in sports world today, I think, is just the NFC North. They're hot. And not only do all of those teams have a plus 500 record, but all 4 of them lead the league in point differential.
Yeah,
right
1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, the top 4 teams are the NFC North.
It's crazy. It's absolutely nuts. And I can't remember a time when this division has been this strong. There's always been the bottom feeder, the Lions or the Bears, or the Vikings have been down and the Packers have just, obliterated everyone, But man, it's going to be a tough division.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think I have this stat right. And this is not any groundbreaking stat. Everybody else has already said this, but I think this is the only time or the first time since the current divisions have been created in like the early 90s that every team in a given division had 4+ wins after week 6. Which is kind of the most Viking thing ever to be this dominant so far, and then also like only be up by 1 or 2 games on the division because everybody else is playing pretty well against the teams they've played. Which you pointed out, the rest of the NFC North haven't really played a bunch of talented teams. So
I
far.
think this deserves some conversation here because I was perusing Twitter, and not that everything you read on the internet is true, but from some verifiable sources.
Wait, what? Everything you read on the internet isn't true?
Yeah.
I don't believe you. Maybe if you wrote that on the internet, I would believe you.
Everything that I say is true.
Okay. All right. Oh, man.
Anyways, I sent you a few things from some verifiable sources. Detroit, 0-1 against teams that are above 500.
Okay.
Currently.
Okay.
Chicago, 0-1 versus teams that are above 500. Green Bay, 0-2 against teams that are above 500. So combined, those three teams are 0-4. Wait, how many games have the Vikings lost?
Vikings have lost 0 games.
They've lost 0 games, which means they are 2-0 against teams above 500. That would be the 49ers and the Texans. Well, I guess the Packers would be in there because they are above 500.
I don't think
technically.
the 49ers are 3-3 right now.
They're
so
3-3.
They're at 500.
So it'd be the Texans and the Packers.
Yep.
But another interesting stat is how the teams that the Vikings and all the other teams in the North have fared against the other teams, right? Like I don't know if you're aware, you're wearing our alma mater sweatshirt right now, Bettendorf Bulldogs. Iowa high school football has moved to an RPI system. And so they look at, of course, your wins and losses, but then they look at your opponent's wins and losses, and then they look at your opponent's wins and losses to factor in all that stuff. And Bettendorf's ranked number 1 in the state right now, 5A. So
everything's coming up. The Skol hop, everything's working well for us right now.
But anyways, when you look at the NFC North teams, the combined record of the teams that these teams have defeated, it's pretty telling, I think. The teams that the Vikings have defeated are 16-12.
Yep, that's pretty good. Above 500.
The teams that the Lions have beaten, 9-13.
Oh, okay. Not quite as good.
The teams that the Bears have beaten, 4-16.
They're awful.
And the teams that the Packers have beaten, 6-15.
Okay.
So it would appear to me that the Lions, the Packers, and the Bears have really only beaten subpar teams, and they haven't had a true test yet. Does that seem accurate to you?
Yeah. And the caveats to those are, number 1, you can only beat the teams that you're going against.
True.
So we can say this and we can feel better about this, saying the rest of the NFC North haven't really played tough competition so far, but that's not their fault, because the Vikings will play these same teams. That's how these divisions work. Everybody in a division, for the most part, plays the same other teams throughout the season. Aside from a couple other things that are based on how you finished in your division last season. But the Vikings will face a similar schedule to all the rest of the NFC North teams. So it'll balance out. The Vikings will they'll get, in theory, a little bit of an easier schedule here, starting, I think, after this week 7 game against the Lions. In theory, on paper, things kind of ease up a little bit. So, number 1, you can only beat who you're playing. So it's not their fault that the teams they played don't have the greatest record outside of those games. But also, I mean, it does make us feel better. For me, that kind of a stat makes me feel better about the Vikings, as they are actually good. Like, they're not the ones beating up on, or even, getting slight wins against these awful teams or lower teams. They're actually beating teams that are decent, and I'll include the Packers on that. Like, the Packers win was a nail biter for a little bit, and the Vikings did pull it out and they won that one. So the Vikings have a few quality wins so far, and for me that just means, okay, this team has something. There's something there. They're not fluky. They haven't gotten some crazy defensive touchdowns out of nowhere. They've gotten them, but it hasn't been the reason they've won every single game. It just makes me feel good about the team.
Yeah. I also think another minor stat that I looked at, and again, stats are stats. They don't tell the whole story. But when it comes to the point differential, now I'm not going to be able to find it quickly. Obviously, we've already covered the fact that the 4 NFC North teams lead the entire league in point differential. The Vikings are second in the league behind the Chargers, I'm pretty sure, in points allowed on defense. And the other NFC North teams are pretty far down on
I do
the
have
list.
it listed in our little outline as far as just the Vikings, or just the NFC North point differential.
Yeah, but I'm just talking about the points against category.
Sure.
So they are second in the league in points allowed, which means the defense, and we've known this, we've seen this through 5 games, the defense has been the signature of this team. The offense has played really well, and the offense has a lot of great weapons. Obviously, the league's best wide receiver in Justin Jefferson. We now have a running back, Aaron Jones. Hopefully he's healthy.
Yeah, if he can stay on the field.
Jordan Addison seems to have recovered well from injury and will avoid suspension for at least this season.
Yeah.
TJ Hawkinson's on his way back. The offensive line is playing really well. All of that to say the defense is still the key part of this team, and I don't know that the other teams in the North have that stout of a defense. The Packers don't. They gave up 28 points to the Vikings in the first half. Now their offense clawed their way back.
Yeah.
And
to be fair, for that Vikings-Packers game, yeah, they gave up 28 points in the first half, but then they also only gave up 3 points in the second half against a team that was trying to decide whether or not they were going to, coast or actually put the foot on the gas. But anyways, I do want to be careful about this because I don't think either of us are saying, yeah, the rest of the NFC North is garbage.
No.
Yeah. I think there are some good teams, and again, I think you're agreeing with me on this. The Packers are pretty good, and Jordan Love on one bum knee is actually not looking awful. It was a cool highlight play, but it was a lot of luck, I would guess. If you saw that Dobbs touchdown where he just kind of like out of nowhere threw it up, and Dobbs, they scored a touchdown. You can only...
And Dobbs made a good play on that ball where he kind of shook the defender off of him and then was able to get the basket catch kind of right there, and then had the awareness to go, oh, there's the goal line. Touchdown.
Yeah. But it wasn't, it wasn't like... I don't think that kind of a play is a repeatable thing.
That's not how they drew it up.
Yeah,
for
exactly.
Sure.
And I will say the Bears, the last 2 or 3 games, Caleb Williams has started to look like he's figuring a couple of things out, and then the Lions, their last 2 games, they've kind of dominated.
Oh, they've routed. Who did they play 2 weeks ago?
It was the Seahawks, and that was the game that Goff had. He didn't have an incompletion. He was like 18 of 18 or something like that. So all of this to say, the Skol Hop fully recognizes the other 3 teams in the division. They're not garbage teams. They're not just getting lucky. It's not just, they got some random fumble return for a touchdown 10 times, and that's why they won the game. I think what we're also saying is the Vikings seem to be a more well-rounded, more put together, and more consistent team. And that will flush itself out and prove itself as these other NFC North teams start playing a harder schedule, and the Vikings obviously keep going, and what I've just said is going to be a little bit of a softer schedule for a minute.
I think another interesting aspect of the NFC North specifically is when each team has their bye week. Detroit had their bye week last week, week 5. The Vikings have theirs this week, week 6. And then I forget, I think it's the Bears are next week or 2 weeks from now.
I don't have any idea. So
I can't remember. I looked it up. I think the Packers are week 10, and then the Bears are like week 7, 8, somewhere in there, maybe week 8. Because there are a few weeks in there where the league built in, there are 0 bye weeks, and all 32 teams are playing. But anyways, I think the bye week could factor in, and I think these early bye weeks for some of these teams could come back to haunt them, including the Vikings in those, later week 15, week 16, week 17 games when injuries are starting to pile up and your depth starts to wear thin and you don't have the guys to go out and play.
Yeah, exactly.
So it'll be interesting to see, and there are always those divisional games at the end of the season. The league has prioritized that to increase the rivalry,
I
increase
love
the
it.
entertainment. Yeah, it's a lot of fun, but it's also nerve-wracking.
It really is. And I think last season the Vikings finished off Lions, Packers, Lions, and this season it's a similar ending to the season. I like it. I think it's just a smart thing the league has done just to keep teams playing their starters longer. There was just a pretty big Hail Mary at the end of the first half of the Monday Night Football game, and I'm not sure what happened. Rodgers looked like he just threw a deep bomb for a touchdown, but the ball hit the ground at the end.
They just ruled it a touchdown.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
This is what you want to hear on a podcast 1 to 2 to 3 days after a game is finished. But it looks like Alan Lazard might have just caught a deep bomb Hail Mary touchdown at the end of the half. And I don't know. I'm glad I'm not an NFL ref. Anyways, I forget what I was saying, but it is nice. The Vikings, I think they lead the league in point differential, which, if you remember, this is another stat that makes me feel good about the consistency of this team. KOC's first year as the head coach, 2022 for the Vikings, with largely the same roster that Mike Zimmer ended his Vikings career with. KOC's first year, he led them to 13-4 record. And their point differential that whole season was -3, which means they scored 3 less points than they allowed.
Yep.
And they won 13 games. Now, that also did end with a pretty, flat tire, depressing playoff game against the Giants. But that's for another time. Anyways, with a 13-4 record, with a -3 point differential, the Vikings currently have a +63 point differential. That tells you this team's a little bit better, less fluky, more consistent. Again, I know they're going to lose a game or 2 or 3 or 4, or however many, but they're good.
And we've seen those down moments, right? We've seen like the second half against the Packers. For Pete's sake, lots of things that happened in London against the Jets. It was just like, what happened? It seems like we just all of a sudden forgot how to play football, and we can't move the ball, and it's punt, or it's turnover, then punt, then whatever. And I think you're right. The Vikings will lose a game at some point. I think you even tweeted this out on our account earlier today.
Yeah.
Like, I think you just said, like, it'll be okay. Like, this should be expected. No one's really gone undefeated in this league since the Patriots did it in, what was it, 04? Or
oh, no,
it was
later
like
than
that? 12?
We should know this. It was
Whatever.
It was later.
I don't care about the Patriots.
like 07 or something like that.
Okay, I was kind of close with 04.
Yeah, I mean, you weren't way off. It wasn't 20 years later.
Notoriously lost to the Giants, to Eli Manning in the Super Bowl, which I think is really funny. But anyways, we should expect the Vikings to lose at some point. It'll be frustrating. It'll be a tough episode to talk about because there will be a lot of glaring issues, I'm sure, in that game that we're like, if they just would have done this, and if they just would have gone back to what they did against the Texans or against the Niners or whatever, we'll be the armchair GMs and the armchair head coach in that episode, and really lay into Kevin O'Connell for all the things that he could have done in that game. But
and if you want to hear how that sounds, go back and listen to the first 6, 7, 8 weeks of the Skol Hop last season, because that's what it was. What was their record at this point in the season last year? Had they won 2 games yet?
I don't even remember.
I think they might have won 2 games by the end of week 6 or something like that. That's something we can easily look up. But yeah, I mean, this team is good. Injury bug will hit them at some point. They'll get just beat. They will lose a game. It's going to happen. And the thing that's making me feel better about saying they will lose a game is that they're scoring points. The defense is stout, but it's not unsustainable. I think the biggest thing is the strategy of the game and KOC figuring out how to close out a win and not have that mid-game slump that we've seen the last handful of weeks.
Keep the pedal to the metal.
Yeah.
Kind of like what you saw with the Lions yesterday playing the Cowboys. Like, they were putting linemen out there, not just Dan Skipper, but like these guys were, declaring as eligible. And they were trying to get him touched. Like, they were getting ultra cute. It wasn't just like, oh, let's run this little flip play. Let's run a little flea flicker here. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's get everybody on the offensive line a touchdown today. Why not?
Yeah.
The Cowboys can't do anything. Let's do it.
Exactly. But I think the Vikings just need to adopt a mentality of who cares? Just keep scoring. Score every play if you can. And it shouldn't matter that you don't want to win by 100 to embarrass somebody. Not that I think the Vikings are a team that are holding back. Otherwise, they'd be winning by 100 every week. I just think they need to get rid of that mentality of, okay, we need to coast here. We need to bleed clock. No, just go. Just score points. Who cares?
So I looked it up. At this point last year, no bye week, Vikings were 2-4. They played the Bears. Do you remember what happened? Do you remember what we were doing that night that they played the Bears? I'm pretty sure this was what I'm remembering it to be.
Oh, man, you're going to have to remind me.
Pretty sure it's the first night we did a live stream.
Oh, no.
Or was that the Broncos game?
I thought the Broncos was the
that
Tom
was
Grossi game.
Was it the Broncos?
I'm pretty sure. I might be wrong. I'm okay with being wrong, but I'm pretty sure the time that Tom Grossi rated us was during the Broncos game. Because that was a Thursday night, and we were just kind of testing it out.
You might be right. Maybe we did the Bears the week after that. We did a Bears
live stream
game.
A Bears game.
And we also did the Raiders game.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that Raiders game. What a
3-0
pile of garbage that game was.
Anyways, the Vikings were 2-4 through 6 games last year. They're 5-0 through 5 games after week 6.
Yep.
This year. Big difference, big change. But I think you're right. A lot of it has to come down to coaching. And even despite that record last year, the Vikings clawed their way back. And I made a video last year on our account where I was going through the playoff machine and trying to figure out, like, what's the path to the playoffs for the Vikings, because it was still in the cards. It was a long shot, but it was still in the cards.
Well, and you were kind of doing it in jest, but at the time it was still mathematically possible for the Vikings to end up with the number 1 seed.
Yep.
Obviously, you were helping the Vikings a lot by making all the other teams lose.
But that's the beauty of something like that.
Yeah. But mathematically, even somewhat late in the season, after the halftime of the season, the Vikings had a mathematical shot at not only the playoffs, but a high seed. And then obviously everything broke down, and the injury to Kirk really showed its teeth, and you can't hold on as long. So the Vikings ended up missing the playoffs. But yeah, it's kind of crazy how even on a down year, there's still a little bit of hope. And this is not a down year. And I think I need to try to keep convincing myself that it's not a down year, while also keeping myself from getting my hopes up, because this team has hurt me before. And if you're listening to this, if you're a Vikings fan, this team has hurt you before, and we all know how it feels, and it sucks. But right now, there's nothing to complain about. The team is good, and the Vikings are going to the playoffs.
I think one of the reasons the Vikings are so good is because of some of these acquisitions that they made in the offseason, and I think that kind of transitioned us nicely to an article from Dustin Baker that you shared with me. 6 winners and losers for the Vikings so far.
Yeah, Dustin Baker, he identified 3 winners and 3 losers as far as the Vikings roster is going so far this season. And all of the winners were acquired after last season ended. And all of the losers were players on the team previously. And not that if you were on the team before, you're a loser. No. But it is kind of funny how those match up a little bit.
It's interesting, right?
What do you think about that article and the winners specifically?
So should I just list out the 3 winners? So Dustin lists out Andrew Van Ginkel, Sam Darnold, and Stephon Gilmore as the 3 winners on the Vikings so far. Winners being players that have just really excelled, played well, have a huge upside right now as it relates to their performance on the team. And I don't think I could agree more with this list. I think it's perfect.
Yeah.
Andrew Van Ginkel has 2 pick sixes. I mean, he's on track for like a record number of those.
Which that's the thing that's not sustainable. He'll probably end. He might get one or two more. That's not one that you can statistically track.
I saw something today. I mean, he's been so good at he locks in on the quarterback. He watches the QB's eyes, and I saw something today that said I can't wait for him to do the same thing to the Lions because they throw those cute little screen passes, and I'm going to be watching for it too. Now that whoever said that out there in the Twitterverse said that, like, yeah, I want to see Van Ginkel get another one because I think it's possible in this matchup against the Lions next week.
Absolutely. I might have seen the same thing you saw because it was like a meme, and it was just a picture of Van Ginkel, like the biggest smile in the world, like super jacked up, probably right after one of those pick sixes. And the caption was Van Ginkel watching all of these screen passes from Jared Goff tonight. So,
yes, that's exactly what I saw. So I think, yes, obviously he's on the list. He's been huge. To have 2 touchdowns on 2 pick sixes as a linebacker.
And he almost had another pick against Brock Purdy in the Niners game too. Mm-hmm. But all that to say, he's playing really well.
He's well deserving of being on this list. Sam Darnold, he's not been flashy. He's not been like, he's had the 97-yard bomb to Justin Jefferson. He's made some great connections with Jordan Addison, Jalen Naylor. But I think we've both just applauded his ability to manage the game, his ability to get the play call from the sideline, from KOC, read the defense, make the right read, make the right throw.
Yep.
And I think he's done that to a T, and he's done really, really well. He's made some mistakes. He's not been perfect by any means, but he's a good quarterback, and I'm excited to see how he continues to develop in KOC's offense. Yeah,
like you said, he's made a couple of bonehead plays or decisions, some things like throwing a ball down and it almost was a fumble or picked off, or having a backward lateral that Brandon Powell had to save him from. There's been a couple of that, and they're kind of starting to show up a little bit more. But I think what you were really saying is the nice thing, and we're seeing it, is KOC and Sam Darnold. We're seeing that they trust each other. KOC trusts Sam Darnold to do his job. I don't know how many options of plays KOC gives Darnold every play call. Maybe it's 1, maybe it's 10, maybe it varies. But KOC trusts Darnold, and Darnold, I think it's pretty obvious, trusts not only KOC, but he kind of trusts himself to make throws, but also to know KOC is going to put him in a position to give him the best options. And I feel like it's got to be good for a quarterback to just know, okay, coach is doing his job, and if I trust coach, things will look the way they're supposed to. And I think we go back all the way to the Atlanta Falcons Josh Dobbs game, where the story was that KOC was translating the play,
spoon-feeding plays to Josh Dobbs on the sideline.
in the huddle, he'd be like, okay, say these words. And then as they broke and he walked up with the few seconds they had left, KOC would be like, okay, so this is what that means. This guy's going to go this way, your first read's here. And then that's a lot of trust.
He gets cuts off, and then they run the play.
But I think it's pretty obvious you're seeing KOC and Sam Darnold trust each other. And what I really hope is that trust is also seeping into JJ McCarthy, because they've got to be in the same meetings and they've got to be around. Sure. And I hope JJ's just being a sponge and soaking everything up. But the one concern though is the last 6 quarters, everybody says, is that Sam Darnold is starting to turn a little orange. He's starting to turn into a pumpkin a little bit. But I think that's just a slump. I think it's still going to be okay. We need to trust each other, and it's going to be good from here on out.
And not to make excuses, but he has been beat up a little bit. I mean, he's been hit hard. The end of the Packers game, they were coming after him. And then in London, the Jets were flying after him. And there was that one play where it looked like he got like a shot to the ribs or something, and maybe bruised or broke a rib or something. And it took him a minute to get up off the field, and we were all kind of holding our breath like, oh no.
Yeah.
And Nick Mullins came in for a play
and threw a dart.
Crazy pass to Aaron Jones, and then of course Sam Darnold comes right back in. But you got to wonder if some of that's just like wear and tear. Like, you're 6 games in on this season now, and 5 games I guess for the Vikings. 5 games in, and you've taken some hits, and your offensive line has played well, but they're not going to catch everything, and they're not going to prevent every defender from coming through, especially when you're going up against some of the league's best.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and those 2 injury plays, the knee or ankle twisting, weird, awkward-looking play against the Packers where Darnold came out, and I think he went to the blue tent. And then obviously the one that you were talking about too, the rib one where he's kind of writhing in pain. Mm-hmm. Both of those instances, right after the play, Darnold did not look like a guy who was going to come back into the game. Like, he looked like a guy that was going to miss some time. Even the Packers game, the next day, we were all kind of like waiting on news from that MRI. Like, okay, is his knee actually okay? Like, or his ankle or whatever that ended up being. And so far, he's avoided, at least publicly, any major injury. And I think an injury to Darnold for the season would do the same thing to this team that the Cousins injury did to it last year, which it's kind of scary. It
is. Well, any team is one quarterback away from tanking, honestly, right? Like, you saw it with the Dolphins. Tua Tagovailoa, great quarterback, goes out in week 2, and they haven't been the same since.
Yep.
We're watching the Bills and the Jets right now. We know what happened to the Jets last year because Aaron Rodgers went out 4 plays into the season last year or something ridiculous like that. And on the other side of the ball in this Monday night game, Josh Allen, right? Like, are the Bills the same team without him?
Oh, I doubt it.
I don't think so.
He's such a talented player. That's why the best teams also, coincidentally, have the best quarterbacks.
Yes. And I wouldn't put Sam Darnold up there in the like upper echelon of quarterbacks.
He's playing like it though. But
he's playing really, really well.
I'm
not trying to downplay Sam Darnold. I'm trying to say he's playing a lot better than any of us expected him to. I expected at this point in the season, and we could go back and replay my take, I expected J.J. McCarthy, if he was healthy, to be inserted into the lineup right now.
Yeah.
Week 7 against the Lions after the bye week. The Sam Darnold experiment is over. It's time for this new kid to take over and see what he can do.
Well, and I mentioned Darnold, his last 6 or so quarters of Vikings football haven't been elite. I guarantee if everything was exactly the same, except for JJ's injury, I guarantee there'd be a lot of Vikings fans right now that would be clamoring for JJ to get in there. They'd be saying things like, hey, this team is so good, we can't mess with this 5-0 record if Darnold's starting to turn back into a pumpkin. Thank goodness. And I'm a very big JJ fan. I will be super happy when he's the starting quarterback of the team, despite the things I've said about signing Sam Darnold long term. I'm very glad that that's not an option right now, because you just sometimes when you're in a slump, which Darnold's not in a slump, but he's slumping, he's kind of edging towards that a little bit. When you're in a slump, the worst thing is to pull you out.
And maybe the bye week was perfect timing for Sam Darnold. Take a break, get healthy, like fully healthy, get back to, game 1 form. I'm ready to go. I'm firing on all cylinders. Get some time in the office with KOC, with Wes Phillips, offensive coordinator, and really get down to business. All right, this is what's happened so far in the first 5 games. These are some of the things that we need to fix. Let's figure them out. We've got a big game coming out of the bye week against a divisional rival, possibly the divisional rival that could potentially win the division over us. Let's figure this out.
Absolutely. And I haven't heard any details about this, but I hope a few things for Sam Darnold during this bye week. I hope he took some time to rehab a little bit, because obviously he's bumped and bruised regardless of the severity. He's got some things he's dealing with. I hope he got to have a day or 2 off, recharge the batteries. Everybody needs that, whether you're, the lowest of the low unemployed person, or you're, Tom Brady. Like, everybody needs a day off. And I hope he did get to do that and spend some office time in with KOC, in with whoever's in that room, whether it's Josh McCown or Wes Phillips or anybody, JJ McCarthy. I don't know. Like, I hope they got to to mix things up a little bit and figure out the perfect game plan from here on out. And if they did all those things, we should be sitting pretty.
Well, we're not even halfway through Dustin's 6 winners and losers, but we are halfway through the beer for the episode, so we should maybe take a break from the article. We'll come back to it. We've still got 1 more winner and 3 more losers, which we'll talk about. But let's crack open the Tiktoberfest.
I'm super excited about this one. I'm almost slightly concerned because when we first pulled these out of the fridge, they felt like they had some give to it.
Yeah, that was weird.
I'm hoping it's just like a volume thing, and there's a little bit more room in there. What I'm hoping it isn't is that it's like an issue with the beer. I don't think it will be because we haven't seen that yet.
Well, it's certainly not flat. I
can already see that.
So that's a good thing. How'd I do on that pour?
Dude,
not too bad.
Dude, you're getting there. That's darn near perfect. And hey, flashback, we're going back to the good old football mugs or glasses. We keep doing that.
It's nice to have a few different types of glasses so that when we mix it up and we have 2 different beers, we don't have to like deal with the flavor of the old beer.
Yeah. Well, can I be honest with you? I like the newer Stein, the larger glasses that we've got, but if I'm being honest, I think I prefer the football glasses.
They are pretty cool.
I think it just feels good.
If we can figure out how to get our logo on the side there.
I thought we had something going with that.
We're working on it.
All right,
it's still in the works.
All right. Well, all that to say, we're about to try the Tiktoberfest from Titonka, which I need some. Do you have any idea why it's spelled Tyke, Tiktoberfest?
I don't know. No, I have no idea.
I initially thought it was for Titonka, but Titonka is spelled T-I-T, not T-Y. So I don't know. Maybe Jeff, if you're listening, hey, I told you Jeff from Titonka, he was the one that bought the other shirt.
Yeah, you did. Yeah. You did. Last week, I think.
There's a chance you might be listening right now. If you're listening, give us some details about the Tiktoberfest. Maybe it's like a common thing and we're just oblivious to it. I don't know. But
enlighten us, Jeff. And in the meantime, we're going to try this out.
Let's try this out. Skol.
Got a nice little ring there.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
Okay, there's nothing wrong with this beer. I think I don't know what it was. They just gave a little bit more when you squeeze the can. This is delicious. The head kind of went away really quick for both of us, but that's okay. This is really good.
It's surprisingly sweet for an Oktoberfest. It has a little bit of a sweet aftertaste, which I really, really like, actually. Mm-hmm.
And it's got a lighter flavor. The flavor is still full and it's there, but it's maybe it is that sweetness that you're getting. It's not as, I don't know, deep, and
it's certainly not like as complex as the brown that we just had. That was dark and malty and chocolatey and complex in those ways. This is complex in a lighter, this is more of a fall, like a sunny fall day.
Yeah.
It's you're going apple picking on a Saturday and this is what you're going to pick up.
It's like a nice, refreshing. Usually I wouldn't say an Oktoberfest is like refreshing. You know what I mean? Like a energizing boost, you know. This is in a good way, but it's still an Oktoberfest. It still has that fall-y vibes. It's not like a citrusy IPA or anything like that. And it does say it's a Marzen lager, so I mean maybe that adds to it. But 5.6%. If I had tried this blind and you asked me to point out the liquid just from the taste, I'd picture something very much lighter in color. It's got a really good caramel color to it, but the flavor's light and refreshing and still an Oktoberfest. It's pretty unique. I don't know if I've ever really tried one like this.
You definitely get some caramel notes in the kind of like the aftertaste as well. Like it has the maltiness, but maybe that's the sweetness. Is there some caramel in there that is contributing to that? It's super good. A very unique Oktoberfest, one that I would definitely have again.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely.
And one that doesn't taste like any other that I've had.
Maybe this is unique. It's a crushable Oktoberfest. And not that Oktoberfests are usually like 8 or 10% beers, but at 5%, it tastes like a 4%er.
Yeah, it kind of does.
In a really good way. This is, I mean, you feel like you're going to be able to crush a bunch of these if you really want to.
It doesn't feel, it's not like super boozy. It's not super in your face.
A light, refreshing Oktoberfest, which I feel like you don't hear all the time. Good job, Titonka. This is, I feel like we're both like, not weirded out, but like surprised, pleasantly surprised by this one.
We're definitely going to need to take a pilgrimage to Titonka.
What are you doing right now? When you open Titonka, we'll be there.
I got to work tomorrow, but we'll figure it out.
You just call in. Nobody will know.
Yeah. Nobody will know. All right. We got to finish this list here. We've got one more winner. We've talked about Andrew Van Ginkel. We've talked about Sam Darnold. Stephon Gilmore is the final winner. And I agree, too. The game-sealing interception against the Jets, huge. I'm staring right at it because you're sitting right next to it there. Stephon Gilmore used to play for the Colts.
I don't think you can see it. And if you're watching on YouTube or Spotify, definitely if you're watching like the clipped out version on YouTube, you can't see it. But we do have the, it's like a commemorative pennant.
Sure.
It's not shaped like a pennant, but it's the felt pennant material that commemorates the largest comeback in NFL history.
Yep, December 17th, 2022, Vikings against the Colts. They came back in overtime. They were down 33-0 and won 39-36. But Stephon Gilmore played on that Colts team, and one of my most vivid memories of that game didn't happen it happened during the game, but my memory of it happened after the game, watching some of the Vikings content that came out. Paul Allen ripped Stephon Gilmore apart on the broadcast for a hit that he laid on Justin Jefferson. He just kind of basically said, like, leave our kid alone. He has no business going after our guy like that, or something, as only Paul Allen can do.
Sure. We love Paul Allen, by the way.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But it's just interesting that here he is on this team, and he's making a huge impact.
Oh, yeah.
I think between him and Shaq Griffin, those two guys have allowed very few completions. Obviously, Gilmore has the game-sealing interception against the Jets in London. He's up there in terms of these off-season acquisitions Kwesi has orchestrated to put this roster together, and he's playing up to his contract for
Absolutely.
Sure.
And I don't remember him hitting Justin Jefferson like crazy. I do remember the beautiful move Justin Jefferson put on Gilmore to score a touchdown in the middle of that comeback. And maybe the hit was after that, a little bit of retaliation. But these are professional football players. It's a contact sport. I don't have the specific stats in front of me, but I think, one, quarterbacks are typically not throwing Gilmore's way. He's doing his job. And when they do, I saw it today, quarterbacks, when they throw Gilmore's way, have something like a 66, somewhere around their quarterback rating. So they're not doing very well when they throw Stephon Gilmore's way. And, I mean, what is he, 34? Super old, super ancient.
I turned 34 in like a month.
Yeah, and I'll be there just a few months later. But as far as NFL cornerbacks go, that is super old and super ancient.
Yes.
He's still getting it done. And I think he played really well last year as well for the Cowboys. Is that where he was last year?
Maybe.
He's only had a couple of down-ish years, and a down year for Stephon Gilmore is not really a down year. I'm glad he's on the team. I think $10 million they paid him for this season is money well spent. And in this Vikings territory article, Dustin Baker pointed out Gilmore signed right before the season started. I think training camp there's still a little bit of time in training camp, but Gilmore had enough time to kind of scan the league. I'm sure the Vikings were not his only opportunity to play football this year. They might have been the highest dollar value opportunity, but probably not by much. But Gilmore chose to come to the Vikings, and he's proving that Kwesi made a good decision. And he's another one. Gilmore, Dalton Reisner. There's a few players that it feels like Vikings Twitter has bullied Kwesi Adofo-Mensah into signing, but that's okay. They're working out so far.
Well, I've seen another graphic on Twitter, And it's this long list of all these offseason acquisitions, Sam Darnold included, Jonathan Grenard, Andrew Van Ginkel, who we've already talked about, Stephon Gilmore, Shaq Griffin. The Vikings signed, I think, like 8, 9, 10 players for the same amount that Kirk Cousins and Christian Darrisaw would have cost.
Daniil Hunter.
Darrisaw
was signed.
You're right. Yep. That was just a Freudian
right.
slip. But yes, Daniil Hunter and Kirk Cousins would have taken up, and maybe still do take up, a lot of that cap space on the Vikings roster. And these 10 players add up to less than or about equal to what Kirk and Daniil would have taken up.
Absolutely.
It's crazy. It's nuts.
And a lot of those are defensive players. And I think, and not to take anything away from Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, because I think at this point he's proving he's a good GM. The team is good, and they have consistently been good. They would have been good last year if not for Kirk's injury, because he was starting to turn things around. Again, not to take anything from Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, but I think the defensive signings, you have to give a lot of credit to Brian Flores. And for that reason, you need to, even though he's earning his head coaching spot somewhere, he's always been a good coach, and if not for the legal issues that he has brought to the league, he probably would be a head coach right now. But you got to keep him. You got to keep Brian Flores.
Blank check.
And that, again, we've said it, that may have already happened. I feel like that one of the first times we had Dustin Baker on the Skol Hop, darn near a year ago, by the way, was the first time Dustin Baker was on. I think he either on the recording or just to us alluded to the fact that Brian Flores is currently one of the highest paid coaches in the league, coordinator or not, which he's proving that he's deserving of that. So keep it up. Give Brian Flores a lifetime contract. He deserves to be a head coach. He deserves all the accolades. But if he's going to get blackballed by the league because he had the audacity to sue them for what seems like probable, good causes, I mean, if the Vikings might as well benefit from that,
Yeah. I think we can make pretty quick work of the next three. The three losers, Ed Ingram, Caleb Evans, Brian Asamoah. None of those players have really shown any flashes. Dustin, in his article on the latter two, talks about how neither of those two, Caleb Evans or Brian Asamoah, really start on defense or have any snaps on defense whatsoever.
Oh, the Jets are about to score a touchdown.
Oh, boy.
Breece Hall. Oh, he got to the 2 or 3. Anyways, keep going.
But those two, Evans and Asamoah, they've only really seen time on special teams, and they're not really doing a whole lot to make a case for themselves as starters on this roster. And then Ed Ingram, he's a known issue going into the season.
Yeah.
I mean, he struggled last year. He was stepping on Kirk's feet. And run blocking, I think he's decent. But when it comes to pass protection, he struggles. And that's where this news of Dalton Reisner and his practice window being opened really kind of like brightens things up for the Vikings offensive line. Like, oh, okay. Well, maybe if we can get Dalton Reisner to brush up on his run blocking skills, because that's notoriously his weakness is run blocking, or if we can keep both guys, and it's not like you can swap them out every play, but you almost have kind of that like hockey like transition where guys are just kind of coming in like mid play off the sideline there. On your run plays you got Ed Ingram, and on your pass plays you got Dalton Reisner when it works. And you have the depth there, so if somebody else goes out, you can swap in one of those guys in another spot and they can play if somebody gets hurt. So I don't know. I don't disagree with that list either. I think if one were to stay, I think Ed Ingram is the one to stay.
Yeah, just he's a second round pick. Yeah,
and he's got the most time and experience with this line. And no, he hasn't played well this year, but I don't know who else other than Dalton Reisner really takes that spot.
Yeah. Yeah, I also do not disagree with this list at all. Ed Ingram, he's been the Achilles heel at times of the offense. Him and, I hate to say it, but Garrett Bradbury, especially this year, the two of them have been, I can't even think of the word. They have not helped the team at all.
They've been underwhelming,
yes,
for sure.
They've been, the reason there have been a lot of pains when Darnold looks up and there's already, a defender in his face. Usually it's because of Garrett Bradbury or most likely Ed Ingram. I think all three of these are definitely square on the top of the list of losers for the Vikings. I think there's a real chance any or all three of these will not be on the team after this season. And I think you could trick somebody into trading for Ed Ingram. Again, it wouldn't be a first-round pick. You'd be getting maybe a conditional 6th or 7th for Ed Ingram, and maybe even Caleb Evans as well. Both of those have shown a play or two worth of flashes to be able to, say maybe you can get something out of them. Brian Asamoah, he's been just the special teams linebacker. He's had every opportunity and just keeps not taking advantage of it. I don't think he'll be on the team much past this year.
Yeah, definitely some good news with Reisner's return kind of on the horizon. Obviously, TJ Hawkinson coming back is great news. It seems like Aaron Jones, even though he left the Jets game early, seems like he's going to be all right, and it seems like his injury isn't going to really keep him from playing. We kind of expect him to be back against the Lions. Don't expect TJ Hawkinson maybe against the Lions. Maybe another week or so for TJ to come back. But all in all, these guys that are banged up, and especially Reisner and Hawkinson that have been dealing with long-term injuries, looks like the page is turning. They'll be coming back soon. That's really exciting. That's good news for this Vikings team.
Yeah, we heard directly from Dustin Baker today. So via Dustin's source, we have a little bit of information. So it's from Dustin Baker, but he has a source that it sounds like Hawkinson definitely will be. The plan is for him to be back after the Lions game, so the Thursday night football game against the Rams on week 8, and that also Aaron Jones currently looks good and should be playing. I'm kind of concerned that Aaron Jones, they might start to do that whole pitch count thing that the Packers did his entire career. It might be one of those, we see Aaron Jones, maybe he starts, has a drive or two, and then we see him for 4 to 6 plays the rest of the game after that, just to kind of keep him alive, keep him on the field as long as possible. Hawkinson, it sounded like, and also in an article on Vikings Territory earlier today, Hawkinson sounds like if he had it up to him, he'd be playing. He would have already started playing games, but they're being pretty cautious. He's a high dollar contract for the team. Definitely one of the better players on the team, so I understand being a little cautious with Hawkinson, which being 5-0, you can afford to be a little cautious sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. And I think they're smart to be cautious with him and not rush him back into service, because he adds an element to the offense that the offense hasn't really had. Granted, Johnny Munt, Josh Oliver, they've filled in pretty well. Josh Oliver's a good blocking tight end.
They both caught touchdowns in his absence.
And they've both scored, which, I was just going to say that. They've both proven that they can catch passes and get into the end zone. But TJ Hawkinson is, you've said this before, and I'm just stealing what you've said. He's a true wide receiver 3 from the tight end position. I mean, Jalen Naylor, who at that point, right? Like, it's going to be Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and TJ Hawkinson. And Naylor might not really get a whole lot of airtime when Hawkinson returns, because he's going to demand so much attention from the defense. They're going to have to cover those 3. If those 3 are on the field, they're going to have to figure out, the opposing defense is going to have to figure out how to cover those 3 guys, and chances are one of those 3 is going to be open somewhere.
Absolutely.
And again, if Sam Darnold continues to just do what he's done, make the right reads, make the smart throw, we score lots of touchdowns with those 3 guys on the field. And it's awesome.
And all that goes back to KOC and Wes Phillips, and even Josh McCown. I feel good about the offensive play callers and the coaching staff as a whole, obviously defense as well. But with all those weapons, all those shiny toys, I feel like KOC is perfectly equipped to take advantage of all of those too. So should be exciting. If everything's healthy and equal and even, this Vikings offense should really pick up and continue what it's already been doing.
So let's talk specifically about the Lions game. How do you think the Vikings fare against the Lions? Let's maybe focus offensively and defensively for a minute. And before we even get into that, we can kind of just, say out loud the obvious thing. Aiden Hutchinson sustained a really gruesome leg injury. Had surgery in Dallas after the game last night. They played just yesterday as we're recording on Monday night. So the Lions will be without one of their best defensive players. Not that we're licking our chops over that. We definitely are. We're sad for Aiden Hutchinson and the Lions that way. You don't like to see a guy go down, especially with an injury like that. That was pretty gruesome.
Yeah, it was awful, and he knew the second it happened too. Like I said in the TikTok, I don't know how you wouldn't know the second you break your leg, but man, he knew it was a big injury right away.
But this Lions team is still a force to be reckoned with. They put up 49 points or more than that. I can't even remember.
Oh yeah, they've been dominating the last couple of weeks or a couple of games.
They've put up 80 something points in the last two games against the Seahawks and then the Cowboys yesterday. They're a force to be reckoned with. They're a really good team. I would say they're up there in terms of the best team in the NFC North. I mean, I would put them up there with the Vikings. I think the Vikings are slightly better, but I think the Lions are right there. This is going to be one of the best games in the NFL in Week 7.
Oh, yeah.
I think I saw some stuff that on Twitter people were like, can we flex the Vikings-Lions game to the Sunday night or the Monday night window? Is it too late for that? And yes, I think it is too late for that. I don't know that they'll flex this game. I think it'll remain a noon game on Sunday. But
also, they don't flex until
they don't flex until way later. Yeah. But I mean, this is certainly a deserving candidate of a game to be flexed if they were willing to do something like that, because this is kind of a historic matchup. I don't think the Vikings or the Lions have been this good and facing each other in like our lifetime almost. It's kind of crazy how good both of these teams are. It's usually one or the other. Either the Lions are good or the Vikings are good. Typically, it's been the Vikings. Come on.
It's usually the Lions. Our entire life, the Lions have not been great.
Yes.
And even Lions, we're not talking crap. Lions fans they've got to know, like, the last 30-something years, they haven't been great. So it's typically just been a doormat. Sure, in our lifetime, have the Lions won their fair share of games against the Vikings? I don't know the exact stats, flashes, but I'm sure they've beaten the Vikings in Minnesota and Detroit, and a handful of times in the last 30 years. They play each other twice a year. But yeah, it's usually been the Lions finishing 4th or 3rd in the NFC North, outside of a few random years. But yeah, this'll be a good game. It should be the quote America's game of the week. Although marketing wise, they usually reserve that title for one of the 3:00 games. It's funny because...
And the Cowboys.
So this is the game... Yeah, exactly. This is the one game this season probably I'm going to get to go to.
Yeah.
And I'm taking, my wife, 3 kids, bought 5 tickets to this game. Nosebleed. We're sitting way high. But at the time, face value of the tickets were $100, and we bought this, before the season started. I just know my kids are getting older. They want to go to a game, and I want to share that with them. But the last week or so, I've been getting notifications from Ticketmaster.
I bet the resale value's gone emails way up.
Well, I kind of looked at it a couple of weeks ago, like, man. Well, I mostly looked at ticket prices to see, like, okay, maybe the Skol Hop could go on a trip to a late season game to see, maybe there's a team they play at the end of the year that isn't good. That quickly was not going to happen. These tickets are very expensive, and for good reason. These teams are good, but I then looked at this coming game, the Lions-Vikings game, and tickets are not cheap again. I think Ticketmaster is very much trying to get me to sell my tickets because then they get the money from the fees and stuff too. But I spent $100 a pop on these tickets. I think I could easily sell them for $250 a pop.
Yeah,
and we are not like, we're in the 300s. We're up high.
I was gonna say, I bet you easily could double your money.
Oh yeah,
easily.
Yeah.
So that's
Absolutely.
crazy.
I'm not going to. I think it would have to be like a ridiculous amount of money per ticket for me to consider selling them. But at this point, no, my kids are excited. I'm excited. It's going to be a good game, hopefully, and hopefully it won't be the Vikings' first loss.
Keys to victory. What do you think? While you're sitting up in the bleachers and I'm going to have to sit at home and watch it on TV.
Well, we'll still be texting the whole time like we always do
course.
if we're not together. For me, it's, first and foremost, the fun stat, the KOC stat is turnovers.
Yep.
What is he, 22-0 right now when he ties or wins the turnover battle?
Yep.
That's step one. Step two, this Lions offense is no joke. I mean,
they're good.
They're doing the right thing. They may be the best offense the Vikings will face up to this point. The 49ers are pretty good, but even in that 49ers game, McCaffrey wasn't playing. I think this Lions offense will give the Vikings defense the biggest fits they'll see all season. And what I said earlier, the Vikings have to be done with this mid-game slump stuff. They have to stop trying to manipulate the clock or whatever they're trying to do. Whatever they're doing to slow down or even disappear in the middle of the game, cut it out. Like, just stop. Just try to score every single play because the offense is good enough. You just spent a few minutes talking about all the weapons and the coaches, and Sam Darnold obviously is capable of doing the things. Just do the things. Just go for it on fourth down if you need to. Just don't ever give up because the Lions will never give up.
Kevin O'Connell has to have that Dan Campbell mentality. Dan Campbell goes for it on fourth down more than any other coach. Mm-hmm. Dan Campbell is the one putting backup offensive linemen in and reporting as eligible receivers and trying to get them touchdowns when they were up by a bunch.
That's such
at
a
the
weird
end of the game.
thing too.
It was weird, but it's also kind of all right, like I don't remember if I saw it on Twitter or what. I don't know. I see a lot of stuff throughout the day, but I saw something today that was like, unless you're playing peewee football, you don't let up.
Yeah.
There is no mercy rule. There is no you're a professional. If you get beat 70 whatever to nothing, that's your own fault. Mm-hmm. Like, this is professional football. There's no let your foot off the gas. I think it was the Falcons coach a couple years ago that got really mad when some other team tried to run up the score on him, and he kind of notoriously kind of shoved the other coach in the post game.
Didn't need to do that.
Handshake, whatever. And no, this is the big leagues. These are big boys playing for big dollars. We just watched a guy got his helmet ripped off.
Damar Hamlin just completed a tackle, but his helmet popped off too. He looks okay.
Yeah, this is the NFL. I'm sorry, there is none of that. This doesn't occur in that league. So to some extent, I kind of admire Dan Campbell as a coach.
Oh yeah, I don't know how you can hate Dan Campbell as a coach, and I don't know everything about him. Maybe he's a terrible person. I have no reason to believe he's a terrible person. But as a coach, I can totally believe when players want to run through a brick wall for him. You just look at his introductory press conference where he said something like, "We're going to bite off your kneecap and bite off your other kneecap and take a hunk out of you." And I'm sure that plays very well in the locker room. And obviously, the Lions have been one of the better teams in the league this season, last season, most of the last half of the season before. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think that's honestly one of the keys to victory for me is Kevin O'Connell needs to be aggressive.
Yeah.
There are going to be times where he's going to be faced with, do I punt it? Do I try to kick a 58-yard field goal with Will the Thrill, or do I try to go for it on 4th and 3 or whatever? Mm-hmm. Go for it. Go for it. You have Aaron Jones. You have Justin Jefferson. Call up the right play, put the ball in your playmaker's hands, and see if you can convert, right? Yeah. I think that's going to be a key to victory is Kevin O'Connell remaining aggressive as a play caller, not just reverting back to this like, oh, well, we didn't make it happen on 3rd and whatever, so I guess we'll punt it and it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you got to have that Dan Campbell mentality.
Punch him in the face.
Against Dan Campbell.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you too. Another key to victory is going to be that mid-game slump. Like, if we're up 28-0 before halftime on the Lions, pedal to the metal. Mm-hmm. Keep it going. Do everything that you've been doing. Tell Brian Flores, defense, keep doing it. And then offensively, just keep calling plays. Put it in Jefferson's hands. Put it in Naylor's hands. Put it in Addison's hands. Whoever, find the open guy, get in the end zone, and run it up. Run up the score. Let's see a 52-0
mm-hmm.
score.
Yeah. And I recognize that's not your prediction for the game.
That's hyperbole.
But I think back to the magical 2009 season when the Vikings beat the Cowboys in the divisional round, I think, and they beat them. And I think after the game, there was some kind of talk about like from Cowboys players or fans or whatever saying like, yeah, the Vikings could have let up there. Like they really just beat them down. And I think Childress said something like, no, like, you're grown men. Like, stop us. If you're that mad about it, stop us.
Yep.
You don't want us to score on you, stop us. The Vikings, KOC, the thing is, the offense and the defense are good enough, and frankly, the kicking game too, they're good enough that it's not like they're, the 4-foot tall little Napoleon man trying to beat everybody up and being, aggressive for no reason. Like, these guys are good enough they can back it up. Punch them in the face. Like, and I respect the Lions. I respect Dan Campbell. I respect all of them. But like you said, this is professional football. They're going to punch you in the face. So punch them in the face. And maybe this could have a chance to like be a profound game in KOC's career if he can go toe to toe with you could argue the Lions right now are a better team than the Vikings. Like, I'm not saying that, but you could definitely argue that. Not
by record, but just by like overall package, who they have, how they've played, who they've played. Yeah,
and aggressiveness. And I think if KOC could take anything from Dan Campbell, learning wise, it would be, who effing cares? Just freaking win. Just punch them in the face and win the game. That's what KOC needs to adapt, and hopefully this game is something he can take it away from.
So, prediction time.
Oh man.
Do you think KOC is aggressive enough?
So I've kind of been trying to lay the foundation for this a little bit. Most of the time I've been talking. I've said a handful of times the Vikings are not going to go undefeated. They're going to drop 1, 2, 3, however many games. It's not going to be a perfect season, probably. Oh, it'd be amazing if it could be. But I feel like if they're going to lose a game, it's going to be against a team like the Lions, who are just going to come in and punch the Vikings in the face. So officially, I think I have to brace myself for this more than anything. I think the Lions win, and I think it's going to be something like 31-17, and that's less points than the Lions have scored in the last handful of games, and I think that's a credit. That to 31 points, defense, hypothetically, is a credit to Flores and the Vikings defense. But yeah, I think we're going to see a slump. I think, not that I'll believe it, but I think this is where people would be clamoring for Darnold to get benched. Again, not that I believe that. I'm still believing in Darnold, but I think this is going to be a tough week for the Vikings.
Do you credit a lot of that to this Aiden Hutchinson, like, Lions players are going to be coming out like, let's win this, let's win it for Hutch kind of thing?
Maybe, yeah, definitely. I could definitely see that. I think, and having the bye week, I guess I don't know statistically the last 2 years how KOC has been coming off the bye. I'm afraid. I'm more afraid. I fear that the Vikings are going to be, still relaxing from the bye week. Maybe there's more injuries than we know about. I think the Lions, they're on a hot streak right now. And I think the Vikings it's going to be quick. The Vikings may, they'll be down 21-0 or something like that, and then fight back for those 17 points. But I think ultimately, the Vikings are they're gonna drop this one.
Well, the Lions have won 3 in a row, and in the last 2, they've put up 89 points. Mm-hmm. So that's a fun stat. I'm going to disagree with you, though.
Please, I would welcome it. I don't want the Vikings to lose.
I'm going to disagree with you.
Talk me off the ledge, Ev.
So, statistically speaking, and let me see if I can pull this up just so I can make sure that I'm accurate here for the sake of the pod.
Yeah.
The Vikings have 2 wins this season with a score of exactly 23-17.
Okay.
So, I'm just going to take the odds on that and say the Vikings win 23-17.
All right.
I think it's going to be close.
I don't think it's going to be a blowout either way. Like I said, I think the Lions, even in my prediction, they're going to get up to a big lead, but I think the Vikings will fight their way back in.
I think we'll see a lot of what we saw against the Jets. And right now, as we're watching, the third quarter of the Monday Night Football game between the Jets and the Bills is dwindling down. It's tied right now, 20-20. The Jets aren't a bad football team, and the Vikings were able to hold them off, 23-17. Greg Zuerlein just nicked one off the upright.
Oh, did he miss that one? Dang.
He did. Anyways, I'm going to say 23-17. I'm going to say the Vikings win. I'm going to say that Aiden Hutchinson's absence is notable, and I think the Vikings' health after the bye week is helpful. I think Sam Darnold isn't dealing with whatever he was dealing with lower body and ribs the last couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm. Or at least it's better,
Yeah, Aaron Jones is back to healthy. I don't know that they put him on a pitch count quite yet. And he runs the ball effectively, which helps balance out the offense, and you are able to connect to Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Jalen Naylor, maybe a tight end, because those other guys are drawing so much attention. You find Johnny Munt or Josh Oliver for a touchdown here or there, whatever. I think it's close. I think both teams defensively play really well. I think that Lions defense is going to come out with a chip on its shoulder because they're going to want to play for Aiden Hutchinson and
and they also lost a defensive tackle to a pec tear or pec injury. What's his name? Kyle Pecco? Pecco? What did you say earlier?
He tore his pecco.
And that's horrible. We're terrible people for saying that. But they've got 2 significant injuries on their defensive line, and that could be huge. I hope you're right. I hope the Lions lose. I hope the Vikings find a way to win. It's just I feel like they're teetering a little bit, and I hate the phrase, but they got to get that first win or that first loss out of their system.
Yeah, it would be really unfortunate to watch the Vikings lose and sustain their first loss against a divisional rival because it does mean so much. And yes, I'm not discounting the Lions at all. They're a very well-coached team. Mm-hmm. Dan Campbell, we've already said, I admire Dan Campbell. Like, man, if I played for him, I would probably run through a brick wall for him. Mm-hmm. The man is a great football coach. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to get his guys playing well, and they have been playing well. They've won several games in a row now, but they're dealing with some drama. And
sure.
I don't know. I think the Vikings are the better team, honestly, at this point. I think they're a more well-rounded, complete team. We come back to it all the time. We said it at the beginning. I'll say it again. The defense of this Vikings team is the signature of this team. Mm-hmm. If that defense keeps playing well, keeps this turnover margin in the positive for the Vikings, more turnovers instead of less, I don't think the Vikings really struggle with the Lions at all.
I would love for you to be right, because I'll be there, and I want it to be the best, and I want to sing Skol Vikings with my kids 1,000 times, and I want it to be awesome. So yeah, I hope you're right. And if we're getting ice cream up there, we're going to Honey and Mackey's, which apparently is a really fantastic Minnesota, Minneapolis the ice cream place, we're doing it. So I hope we get ice cream for a Vikings win. I'm still going to stick with my prediction, 31-17. You said
23-17.
Vikings, right?
Vikings, yes.
Yep. And our preseason picks, which is what determines the purple punishments. For that, we both predicted a Vikings win this week, correct?
Yep.
So if the Vikings end up losing, we'll be spinning the wheel of purple punishments on episode 63. If they win, it'll be another boring purple punishment segment. But I kind of have an idea for that we can talk about offline here.
Well, for the next episode, at the very least, let's hope I'm right.
Yes.
Let's hope you're wrong.
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to be wrong.
let's hope the Vikings win, so that way we don't have to spin, and we'll work out the other parts of that segment of our show.
Yeah, for sure.
It's been fun so far, but
oh yeah,
I'm sure we definitely diverge into some different directions later on in the season, and there'll be plenty of wheels to be spun.
I would say we would still be open to ideas for the purple punishment segment. We have enough to fill out the rest of the season, but if somebody had a really good idea for purple punishments or anything for our show, how would they reach out to us?
Yeah, hit us up pretty much anywhere, social media wise. I would say the most common platforms that we're on all the time are Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok.
Yep.
I think those are the major four, but we're on some other ones as well, some of the other ones that maybe you wouldn't expect us to be on, but we still get email notifications for a lot of those. So if you prefer something else, hit us up there. And of course, our email address is also a really good place to hit us up.
Oh, yeah.
theskolhop@gmail.com. It really can't get much simpler than that.
Yep. Exactly. And we've gotten DMs, we've gotten emails to that. So if you want to reach out to us, there is no bad way. And ultimately, if you really can't figure out how to, go to our website, theskolhop.com. We have a contact us page. It's there. Also on the website, you can find our merch through TeePublic. We don't have much to do with it, but we both ordered stuff through there. We get a very small kickback from anything ordered there, but they put out some quality stuff, and it's got our logo. There's a few options for it. So if you're looking for Skol Hop stuff, we got mugs and shirts and everything. Our website, theskolhop.com, and TeePublic is our merch store. So yeah, you can find us anywhere.
Yeah, check us out. And if you're watching on YouTube or Spotify, Apple Podcasts, a lot of those links are going to be down in the description below. So just scroll down and you'll find pretty much anything you need to get connected with us, whether you want to send us a message, buy a shirt, whatever. You can find us there. So.
Absolutely. And if you're like Titonka and you're a brewery and you want to send us some beer, we're more than welcome. We're more than open to that too. So you can just contact us through all that.
We love free beer. We love free beer.
And
it's
free good beer, which I'm going to speak for myself. I think I'm speaking for you too. All four of these Titonka beers that we tried, the Rooster Red, and I'm probably not going to get these names 100% right. The Rooster Red, what was the other one we tried? The Somewhere...
Middle of Nowhere IPA.
And then tonight we tried the Buffalo Creek Brown and the Tiketoberfest. For me... They're 4 for 4. Outstanding. If I was going to rank them the same way you rank on Untapped, which is like a 0 to 5, I'd give all of them above a 4.5. They're all really good. This Tiketoberfest kind of tripped me out by being a legit Oktoberfest, but like a refreshing one. And it's super good. What do you think about the Tiketoberfest?
Oh, I loved it. Again, had that like the hint of caramel in it, which just kind of intensified the fall vibes of it. Like it was already a solid Oktoberfest, and then to have that little aftertaste of caramel, I was like, that's it. This is maybe one of the best fall beers I've ever had.
And what about the Buffalo Creek Brown? What'd you think?
Also really good, more complex. In my opinion, had some maltiness, had some chocolatiness. It was dark. It had some body to it. Really good, though. Definitely would have a few of those, for sure.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree with everything you just said. I think anything else I'd say would just sound fake and disingenuous because I'd be, just gushing over these. Because, again, we've only tried 4 of Titonka's. For me, all 4 of them were, amazing. I would gladly have all 4 of them again, especially that middle of nowhere. That IPA was freaking delicious. Thank you. Again, thank you, Jeff from Titonka. Go check them out. I know they're a little bit off the beaten path, even as Iowa breweries go. But if you're anywhere near, take the drive. Go visit them. Check them out. They're delicious. We need to figure out how we're going to go and when we're going to go.
Coming up on like Thanksgiving and Christmas when I'll have a little more time off of work. So we'll figure it out.
Sounds like we'll figure out even a day trip. That'll happen. Oh man. All right. I think we did it. Did we successfully do episode 62 of the Skol Hop?
I think we did it. I think we've talked ad nauseum about all the great things that the Vikings have done so far through 5 games. And we've expressed some concerns about the Vikings moving forward, but overall, there's just beaming optimism for this team. Like, just a lot of things are looking up, and the bye week hopefully only helps those things, not hurts them. So
absolutely. I'm hoping current me is wrong and past me is right in my prediction for this game. I hope we're talking about a 6-0 Vikings team a week from now.
I'd love to not spin the wheel for another week. That'd be great.
Although those jalapenos, I'm kind of itching. I want to try some of those.
You can have some of those if you want.
All right, man. Great beers. Fantastic beers. Maybe our best episode yet. I don't know. Till next week.
Skol.
Skol.
Hey Vikings fans, Evan here from the Skol Hop, and we just wanted to say thank you again so much for listening to the Skol Hop, and we also wanted to take one more opportunity to let you know that this episode of the Skol Hop has been brought to you by Big Top Ventures. If you're considering taking an all-inclusive trip to either Mexico or Jamaica, reach out to our friends at Big Top Ventures at bigtopventuresllc@gmail.com. Once again, that's bigtopventuresllc@gmail.com. You can get the lowest rate possible on several all-inclusive resorts throughout the region. Big Top Ventures. Step right up to your next big adventure. And thanks again for listening to the Skol Hop. Skol.